Plymouth Housing is one of the biggest operators within the homeless industrial complex in Washington state. They get millions and millions of dollars of your money to provide housing to people who are drug addicted, homeless, trying to get back on their feet, presumably. But one of the biggest issues with Plymouth Housing, as so many other aspects of the homeless industrial cog, there's very little oversight of how the money is being spent, the outcomes on the people who, get some of that housing. And what we've seen is a lot of these Plymouth housing locations have just turned into indoor drug dens. I mean, there's people who are dying, overdosing. There's a lot of crime that kind of gravitates to those housing complexes, and it ends up being a drain on neighborhoods and their police resources, bringing down the quality of life for everyone. And so it really has been proven, I think, to be a failed model. Our friend Jonathan Cho had a fantastic story last week where Plymouth Housing had this, I compared it to the Hunger Games. They had this gala, fancy gala at the Westin in Seattle, where they had all the, people all dressed up to celebrate the work of Plymouth Housing. And Jonathan Cho went there and he questioned attendees and the head of Plymouth Housing as to why at this gala no one was talking about, and the crowd wasn't told at all about the many, many issues and deaths with Plymouth Housing facilities. Here's part of his report.
A lot of the residents are dying of drug overdoses. Did they talk about that?
No, we're not. There's treatment programs, but didn't mention any statistics.
Yeah, well, we've done numerous exposés showing all the deaths inside Plymouth Housing. Is that concerning to you?
Well, it's preventative, but I know that there's a model of harm reduction.
Yeah, well, treatment isn't required. Drug addiction treatment's not required. Do you think it should be required inside Plymouth? It's a story that Plymouth doesn't want to tell because they probably wouldn't be getting taxpayer dollars. Do you keep track of all the deaths from drug overdoses in Plymouth House? Don't touch me again.
Please don't.
You're on camera assaulting me, sir. Are your title sponsors like Microsoft aware of the horrific conditions inside Plymouth housing facilities? We've obtained the 911 calls from the Bellevue, the latest Plymouth housing facilities, Miss Lee. Can you just tell me why there's so many problems at the Bellevue Plymouth housing facilities, Miss Lee? Miss Lee, I thought Plymouth was about transparency.
I mean, it was just this stunning scene. Days before Jonathan put out that report, I was driving by that very Plymouth housing facility. It's along I-90 as you're coming up I-90 to get on 405 to Bellevue. And I saw like 6 cop cars there. Days before Jonathan put out that report, and I called him. I said, hey, I'm heading to this thing, but hot tip, there's a bunch of cop cars. He goes, I'm already here, Brandi. I've already been tipped off to it, because he's been covering so frequently these issues within Plymouth housing. People are dying there. And then you go to the Westin at this fancy event where it's a public-private partnership and everybody's giving money to this wonderful thing, and they're hearing nothing about it. Nothing. They don't know. They're led to believe it's this wonderful thing and it's helping the homeless. No, it takes them off of a street corner where they were going to die, puts them out of sight, out of mind in an apartment where they die. And it costs us millions of dollars. We're basically paying like $500,000 a person just for them to die indoors instead of on the streets. So a week after Jonathan does that report, that expose, here's Bob Ferguson last night on X. You can't make this stuff up. He posts, everyone deserves a safe, stable place to call home. Plymouth Housing makes that a reality for many Washingtonians. Proud to have them as a partner as we work to build a lot more affordable housing in our state. A week after this expose talking about how many people go there, you say safe, stable? How many people go there to die? How your money sends them there to die. And Bob Ferguson is celebrating it. We're so proud as the state of Washington to have them as a partner so we can build even more of these death camps. Can't fix the reason why they're on the streets in the first place. No, because that's cruel. No, they're perfect just the way they are. Drug addicted, all of that, mentally ill. Can't focus on the treatment, on the accountability. Let's just build a multi-million-dollar apartment complex and shove them in there to be victimized and die. When do we wake up? It's crazy. They're never going to fix it because they get too much money. You know how much money the state of Washington takes from you to build these affordable housing units where they put in drug-addicted homeless people to die? It's been billions over time, only for the crisis to get exponentially worse. You know this by now. Our friend Andrea Suarez with We Heart Seattle she was also equally shocked by Bob's post. I can't believe a week after this expose, he's celebrating Plymouth Housing. And she talked a little bit, of course, she's an outreach worker, a volunteer, has built this big movement that is based in the truth. This is a drug crisis, not a homelessness crisis. She shared her thoughts after Bob Ferguson's post. She said, literally every drug addict I know says they get their drugs from the dealers at any one of the Plymouth housing projects. She said, we are rewarding drug dealers with free housing who prey on the mentally ill and seniors. How do the drug addicts support their habit? They steal and boost all day long, and Plymouth Housing also harbors those thieves. She said, I asked Plymouth Housing to investigate the stolen backpack scene here that tracked phones and laptops to Plymouth on Stewart, and they refused to cooperate. Eddie, a resident, tried to help us, and he told Andrea, everyone who lives here is a thief. She ended by saying, housing addicts doesn't remove crime, it enables it. So she says out on the streets, which she's out talking to addicts and to homeless people every day, she says all of them are getting their drugs from someone associated with Plymouth Housing. Either they're living there, or, as we've reported on before, thanks to great work on the ground from our friend Jonathan Cho with Discovery Institute, the drug addicts just set up shop outside the Plymouth Housing because they know that it's not one of the conditions to live there, to be clean and sober. So they think, wow, here's a building with 200 drug-addicted people in one place. What better place to set up shop than right outside? And that's the point Andrea's making. And of course, we know if you're using that many drugs, you're funding the habit somehow. And we know it's through theft. You see it if you go down to 3rd and Pine or 12th and Jackson, the open air markets where they're selling all sorts of things that they stole from small businesses nearby at a time when those businesses can hardly survive as it is and are about to be hit with the largest tax increase in state history against businesses. So they steal things to fund their drug habit, and all of us, we pay for a roof over their head where they're eventually just going to die. And Bob Ferguson thinks that's something worth celebrating. Unbelievable.